All right. I think perhaps we can get going as the others start trickling in. Hello, hello, everyone. It's so awesome to have you all here. Um, Actually, let me make sure that I can actually get my PowerPoint moving. Susie, do you want to make sure that it's recorded as we speak?
Yes, it says it's recording on my end.
Okay, perfect. That is great. Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. It's so great to see all of you here today. Before I jump into it, I realized that the PowerPoint skip a little too far ahead. It's so good to see all of you here. My name is Sigjing Ong. I go by Sigjin, she, her pronouns. I am joined today by Susie Morales. I'll let Susie introduce herself a little bit more shortly when we get to the team slide. But if you're here today, it's because you're excited to hear about the Root Rhythmic Sabbatical. It's the second of the sabbatical offerings that we have here at Nexus, and we are so excited to tell you more about it. It's been out now for about almost a week, so probably you've read all about it, but I know nothing beats, hearing more about it and consuming the information in the information session. So the first part of the session, we will go through the information. So hopefully, if you have questions, maybe some of the information then will help those questions be answered. But if your questions are not answered, we encourage you to hang on to them. There will be time for a Q&A on the second half. So make sure that you key it into the chat, because if you have that question, chances are you're not the only one. So by asking those questions, you're helping other community members get the answers to them as well. The other thing that we really encourage you all to do as well is that during this time, this whole reclaiming of rest is something that we're all trying to do together. And we know that rest is so hard won in this world that is increasingly complex and that is just so stressful right now. So, whatever it is that you need in this moment that helps you to just ground in that restfulness, we invite you to do that for yourself. This beautiful image that you're staring at right now is something that we were so privileged to co-create together with Tori Hong. And as you could see here, it reflects different ways that the different bodies, different people in this image, rest, right? Some of it are more active, some of it are more embodied, some of it are more restful, and we see different beings living, breathing, timeless creatures like the mountains, like the rivers, like the lakes. And we invite you to do the same, whatever that is real and restful for you in this moment. Breathe into it and be in it. Rest can look so many different ways. And just as we practice and lean into reclaiming those stories and those practices, it can look so many different ways. And that's what we're hoping to be with you here today. There's no one way to rest, and we are all leaning into that multiplicity of being in practice together. Susie, anything else you might want to add for framing?
No, I don't think I have anything else. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, we want to introduce the beautiful team that is behind this work. So I would actually love to pass it to you, Susie, to talk a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Susie, she, her pronouns. I am the program manager at Reclaiming Our Own Time, or ROOT. I've been with the root or with the team for about a year now, and I'm really excited to share more about the rhythmic sabbatical. Um, Sukjin, do you want me to talk about Rosalva quickly? Okay,
Yes,
great.
please.
So you see three images or three photos, but there are only two of us here. So the other co-director alongside Sukjin is Rosalva Hernandez, and she couldn't make it today, but she is also one of the people who really dreamt up this sabbatical. So we want to give her a shout out. And yeah, I think that's it for now.
Thank you, Susie. Yes, so we are behind this effort here at Nexus, and of course, we're also supported by many other healers and dreamers of this particular work. There's many others who are behind efforts to reclaim rest here in Minnesota and beyond as well. And I think it's really great that we are in this particular moment in time where so many of us are really pushing back against this hustle culture that a lot of us are being pushed into. So great to see a lot more of this work. So let's move on. So a little bit about the work broadly before we go specifically into the rhythmic sabbatical. So root or reclaiming our own time. If you are new to our work, welcome. We're excited to talk more about this. So the sabbatical itself is a piece in many of the different things that we are working on here at Nexus. So reclaiming our own time or root is one of the many programs that Nexus runs and the work of Root that Rosalva, myself, and Susie are so privileged to work on. We really focus on this work of reclaiming rest through providing resources and spaces to restoring what it means for us folks who are Black and brown bodies to really reclaim rest for ourselves. And this show up in two ways. So our work and our commitment to our community members that shows up through these sabbaticals that we're going to talk a lot more shortly. They also show up through community events. You may have attended some of those if you're a part of our Reimagine Rest series. Susie spearhead a lot of those and design them beautifully and hold those spaces. If you subscribe to our digital newsletters, or also known as care packages, those are also put together really beautifully by Susie and her team. Um, we do other events where we are invited into spaces by different community groups as well that we support in different ways. Those are ways in which that we lean into our communal relationships to bring more ways that we can all rest together. And then we also know that there are many things going on in our ecosystem around rest as well. So for some of you who were recently at our Heal the Healers 3-day gathering or convening at Neighborhood House, that's one of the work that falls under this beautiful bucket of responsibility to our ecosystem because we know there are so many amazing healers out there and we see that we are part of this ecosystem and how can we lean and nourish each other so that we stay healthy, stay whole, especially during these challenging times. How can we share and reclaim narratives around rest that centers what we tell, right, instead of being told um, by others. So a lot of our work in that space is less about like what we create, but more like how do we amplify each other's work. So that's the second bucket of our work. So we're still in our early years and of course, if any one of you want to talk about, any one of this, definitely feel free to reach out to our team. You can do so by hopping onto the Nexus website and reach out to us. And thank you for that shout out for the convening. We were just so excited to be with you all. That was really nourishing for us as well. So y'all are here though for the rhythmic sabbatical. So let's talk about that. So this is something that we are super excited to share because it's dreamt up by a lot of different community members and really in response to this question that the concept of sabbaticals itself, especially in the traditional sense or the conventional sense, I should say, has been rooted in a lot of privilege in existing spaces where, that has exists. Oftentimes, folks who are able to take that, um, you know, could take a bunch of time off, right? They could take 3 months or 2 months or a year off. If you think about higher education, if you think about, organizations who could send people off for that amount of time, these are the folks that, so called have made it, right? And they could do that. But that means it excludes a whole bunch of us, folks who are out there really advocating for the betterment of our communities, for the better futures that we want to see for our peoples. And we need that rest too. So, how do we still get that time off, get that deep rest that we all so deserve and so need to take care of ourselves? So that's where this concept of the rhythmic sabbatical came about. So, really asking that question, what might it be like to still be able to rest deeply while honoring our life's pace? And really, that piece around our life's pace, right? Like, life is going to happen. We still got to rest. How do we do that? And so, this rest fellowship really centers the format of how do we create that consistent opportunity where 15 individuals will be able to unplug deeply. And so, one thing that we were so lucky to be able to do with our first cohort of the continuous sabbatical folks, so those were the folks that did do that deep, continuous, you know, deep stretch of rest they were able to do is to work with them with our rest curriculum. The folks who are going to do the rhythmic sabbatical will experience this. However, the difference is that we'll make sure that whoever that's going on the rhythmic sabbatical will do that in this shorter burst that you are still able to have the deep rest, but in chunks that will allow you to rest without completely unplugging from your life's obligations. So, what does that look like? So, it means monthly retreats from May to November. You have probably seen the dates on the website. You know when those times are already, and we'll show them shortly in the presentation as well. And there will be 15 people that will be on this journey with you. Um, the monthly retreats will have different ranges, and we are intentionally crafting them so you'll have this deep, immersive experience together. And during this time together, you will have this experience of being together, being in conversation, deeply resting, really unpacking what does, reclaiming that rest feel like for yourselves, and be engaging with healing practitioners and having just that time off. You will have that time to just be with yourself and be with each other. You will receive support for that time off. So, your travel expenses are included. You'll get a modest stipend to support it. So you'll be taken care of during that time. And we'll also provide other resources like a journal and whatnot, so that this feels like a really well held experience for you. So that way you don't have to unplug to rest, and yet you'll feel rested during this time. So with that, Susie.
Yes, thank you, Sikjin. Yeah, so who are we looking for? Um, like Sikjin had mentioned, we want to break past what the typical who gets access to a typical sabbatical. Oftentimes, we hear of sabbaticals through higher education and academia, and also CEOs, people who are higher up in an organization who have the opportunity to take sabbaticals. Um, but sabbaticals, well, resting should be accessible to everyone, right? So we are looking for people who would consider themselves a change maker, right? So people who um, have done different type of work in community, and we are very intentional about broadening this term leader for this what's it called, sabbatical, because leadership can look like many different things. It can be someone who is that traditional leader in an organization, but it can also be someone who is supporting the neighborhood kids and making sure that they get to their bus on time for school. It could be someone who is organizing people in their school or at their workplace to allow more gender neutral bathrooms. It could be the auntie who's always bringing people food when they're sick. So really, we want you to think about the things that you do or you see others do to um, make life a little bit easier for others or yourself. It can be from these small acts, or it could be those bigger acts that we traditionally see. Um, yes, and we have some examples of like more examples like I mentioned in our FAQ. So if you ever want to look at that web page and see, does this make sense for me? We encourage you to. So Jin, anything that you would add to that?
I know, but this is also a good reminder for folks that if you have not checked out the FAQ, definitely do. There's a lot of good information that there.
Agreed. Okay, if we can go to the next slide. So something new for this round of sabbatical application is that we are opening it up to groups. So groups are allowed to apply. And the thought and intention behind this is sometimes rest is often or talked about as an individual act. You take time by yourself. As an introvert, I love that. I know others practice rest differently. So this is an opportunity for a group of individuals who are connected by work, through their passions, their relationships, to experience the sabbatical together. It can be really nice to have people that you know experience something similar with you alongside you. It can be really nice to be able to talk to them, debrief, and be like, you know what, this is what's coming up for me. So we want to offer people the opportunity to do that together. We will be randomly selecting all the applicants. We'll randomly select one group. So please, if you are wanting to join or take part of the sabbatical with a group, know that that is possible. Um, okay, I think next slide. Let's get moving. Great. And then the commitment. So, um, as much as, we would love rest to be easy, if we're being honest, rest takes work. It takes a lot of effort to say, you know what, I'm not going to check my emails right now. I'm just going to sit here and breathe or look outside my window or go for a walk. Like for many of us, that can be really hard. And so we know that for this sabbatical, the time that we have together, we want it to be very intentional and amongst people who know that they are willing to go deep with us and can attend the retreats. So some of the commitments we are asking is that you attend all monthly sabbatical retreats. Life happens. Sometimes, things come up and you say, I can't make it this time, or, something comes up. If that's the case, we ask you to communicate that with us and we'll try to work something out with you. But we really do want to make sure we can have all of our fellows together during these retreats so we can, again, experience this together and not miss out on the beautiful practice of rest. Um, we ask that during the monthly retreats that you disconnect from work or whether it be paid or unpaid, or minimize communications with other obligations you might have. Of course, we can't fully disconnect from everything, but to the best of your ability, we ask you to do that. Commit to doing the work needed for the sabbatical experience. So what that means is if you are going to go, if you're going to be on a retreat this month, maybe you want to set automated email responses to let people know I'm unavailable these days. I'm going to be on my sabbatical retreat. Or telling, your family members, hey, during these days, I would really love if you could help me out with XYZ things so that I can really step back and enjoy this retreat. So starting to think a little bit ahead so when you're actually at the retreat, you can fully enjoy it. Um, Honor the intention of sabbatical experience to truly rest. Um, Participants commit to not taking on additional obligations. So we ask, you're committed to the retreats, to this experience. Don't take on more work because that might take away the time and energy you have for experiencing rest for yourself and doing some healing, right? Okay, next slide.
Hey, Susie, can I jump in here a
Oh,
little
go
bit?
ahead. Yes.
This might be a great time to actually address the question on childcare, and maybe this is like
Oh, sure.
one version of the answer here. So this is where one thing that we want to encourage is thinking about what is restful for you, and it looks very different for different people, right? And the whole idea of having some modest stipend is depending on where you are in your life, because maybe for some of you it might be childcare, for some of other folks it might be caretaking of other loved ones and relatives in your life, or other obligations that you might have. And having that stipend helps you think and plan ahead to maybe say, get someone and say, hey, can I, pay for you to take care of the person, or maybe swing by and do X, Y, and Z to help alleviate or like look after the person during the time that I'm gone. I know that that's not necessarily the easiest, but it helps you think about like what are the arrangements that you could do for the times that you will be away. Because for the sabbatical experiences in this particular instance, your rest are those monthly retreats. And otherwise, during the in-between time, you're back to your regular work or life circumstances. And so if you do miss any of this, you are missing out on the experience that you are signing up for. So the idea of using the stipends is to help you truly be able to unplug during the time that you are away. And that's where using that resources for you to be present would be really important. Some questions that I have already fielded from community members for the commitment piece also involves like, hey, if I have a really young child, and part of what helps me feel restful if I am chosen is to make phone calls at night to just, check in on my young ones and be like, hey, how you doing? I just want to see like, are folks doing good at home? Can I do that? Like, if that helps you feel restful, yes, right? And, like, so think about what is the version of that that helps you feel restful. And the idea is that, like, sometimes we need to be able to unplug and take care of us. And part of that learning and using this opportunity to truly learn to let go and choose us in a world that constantly asks so much from us is to have some resources to be able to ask those questions. So ultimately, the only one that can answer those questions is yourself. And this is where, we are going to provide you some resources to help with that. But the ones that will truly be able to answer these questions will be the recipient themselves. So, yeah,
Thank you, Sukjin.
perfect.
Mm-hmm. You want to click to the next slide?
Perfect.
Awesome. So on this screen, you'll see the fellowship or retreat dates. These are all dates that we would ask you to block off of your calendar, starting in April, going all the way through November. You can see that the dates all vary. So I think Sukjin had mentioned the retreat dates can vary from 3 up to 10 days. So don't worry about writing this all down. We have these dates up on the website for you to, start to think about, is this possible for me? What do I have to do to prepare to attend if selected? But again, April all the way through November. So as I mentioned earlier, rest, takes work. And so part of the retreat experience, we will spend dedicated time, not the whole time, but some time to really unpack what rest looks like for us through some of the curriculum that we've built. So that curriculum is, as you can see in the list, savoring the story of rest, really understanding or maybe opening up our definition and perspective of what rest is, tending to the roots of rest, reclaiming rest together, resting in time of resistance. Those really focusing on remembering how our loved ones, our ancestors, our other communities have practiced rest and what lessons can we learn from them? How can we incorporate some of the practices or lessons that they had to offer? And how can we continue to rest when we face internal or external resistance? You'll have the chance to meet with different healers and rest practitioners during retreats. And through our curriculum, we'll have those facilitated conversations to again have us think a little bit more about what rest actually is and how we want it to be, so that during retreats, during that time together, we can start practicing what that new or strengthened relationship to rest that we want. Eligibility. So, um, I think I just want to start by saying that we are still a nonprofit. We still have some things that we need to follow, rules that we need to follow. And so, knowing the limits we had, we tried to still make this a pretty broad opportunity, meaning allowing different types of people, diverse communities to still apply. So here is our eligibility list. Again, the sabbatical is for those who have been doing community change work for a significant part of their lives. I want to emphasize here that significant part of your life doesn't have to mean 20 years. If you're a young person, 18 years old, a significant part of your life might be 1 year or a few months. You can be someone who maybe is starting to do some type of community work. Um, and you're like, you know what? This is a lot because the systems have not been built for us. And I'm starting to feel burnout. So you might think, okay, this is an opportunity for me to step back a little bit and rejuvenate myself. Um, we ask that you be 18 years of age or older by March 3rd, which was on Monday. Identify as Black, Indigenous, or person of color, reside in Minnesota or any of the Native nations whose territories are occupied by Minnesota, be able to receive funds in your name electronically to a financial banking institution. And this is because our finance system requires, what's it called? We would be paying an institution, like we would do a direct deposit or a cash check to your name for that modest stipend. Have a mailing address and then travel documents that meet the real ID requirements. If you noticed, we will be taking the group to New Orleans for that first retreat. So we're really excited about this, being able to experience stepping away from Minnesota for a little bit and learning and really engaging in another culture, another just geography. Um, and so we will need you to be sure that you can travel. Um, Anything else that I might be missing here, Sikjin? No?
Spot
Okay,
on.
great. We'll keep it moving. Let me see where we're at. Yes, so if you are selected, this is what you can expect. You will need to complete a W-9 and submit a form of ID. The W-9 for your stipend is something that our finance team is requiring of us. And a form of ID, we do have a list of acceptable IDs on our FAQ page, so please look through that to find out what you would need. This is just to be sure that you are you and that we're not being scammed. But again, that ID list is on the FAQ page. We'll ask for a reference from a BIPOC community member speaking to the impact of your work. Um, I don't want this to scare you. It's not meant to be scary at all. This is part of our verification process to make sure that, again, you are you. And this will be a phone reference unless you tell us otherwise, if for some reason that person can't be reached by phone. We just give them a call and be like, hey, do you know this person? Can you tell us a little bit about them? Great, they sound amazing. Thank you so much. And it's as easy as that. And then we will ask that you sign a grant or commitment agreement agreeing that you will attend all the fellowship dates and are committing to this experience with us. Next slide. Okay, and so we will move on to talk a little bit more about what that application process looks like. And Sikjin, I'll pass it to you.
Great. Thank you so much. So the application process, this is something that we got the privilege of co-creating with our sabbatical design committee when we first dreamt up of this particular piece. One thing that I will say is we know how especially in our communities, whenever we apply for something, one of the things that, a lot of processes out there, right, really wants to make us to prove ourselves and say that we're X, Y, and Z and kind of bring our receipts, right, so to speak. And I think, as the community, we have been made to like really jump through the hoops for all the things. And so, one thing that was very clear as a value is that how do we make this process reflective instead of traumatizing to the best of our ability? Because we have been there. We know how difficult some of these things can be. And we know how rest is so important. And we only have so many slots that we have. So, how could we make this process to the best of our ability? Something that whole space for people to tell their stories and be meaningful to the best of our abilities. So you will notice, and I believe some of you actually have already submitted your application because I recognize some of your names. And hopefully the process has been one that felt light enough, that felt inviting, that you were able to tell that story here. Um, so what you will see is that there isn't a ton of questions, and that is meant to be so. We asked a bunch of questions at the start for your demographics because we got to collect those for the sake of collecting those. And after you get past those questions, a bunch of those are those eligibility questions to the ones that Susie mentioned earlier. You will get to these reflection questions here. And we truly, truly invite you to be reflective. You notice that we say up to 300 words. So we're not looking for essays. We're not looking for, you to try and prove your worth. We really want you to think, like, what what is it for you when you think about your rest experiences? So the first question, what has your rest experience with rest has been? The second question, when we define rest as activities, physical movements, or experiences that bring you deep joy, peace, that make you feel restored, like how would you like your rest practices to be? And if you haven't had a chance to build those practices, what might those be like if you get a chance to build them? How do you envision the sabbatical resources support your vision for rest? Tell us an example of a community change work that you were involved in that you were most proud of. Like tell us your story, right? Be proud of that. Share what you have been up to. Share us your dreams, your visions about rest. Tell us that story. We have had in the past received applications where people just put test, 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 test. Don't do that. We truly read every single application. So even though we will randomize and select, from eligible applications, we do read them, and they do matter. So take this moment as an opportunity to reflect on what your rest practices are. Um, this time around, for those of you who are applying as a group, we also have additional questions for the group. And the reason why is that we want you to think as a group, what does it mean to do this together, right? Like, that's the reason why the few of you who choose to be together on this journey want to be together. So, what does it mean for you to be on this journey if you get to be chosen as a group going on a sabbatical together? Once again, it doesn't have to be a long essay. Just tell us what it means to you if you are chosen. And how might it transform you if the three of you, if the five of you, if the two of you get chosen together? How might this change the way that you show up for your community, show up for your people? Tell us that story. We would really love to hear about that. Um, Once again, as I mentioned, the selection process is one that is going to be a randomized selection process. And, this is one that our sabbatical design committee and us thought about pretty at length. And it is one that we recognize that it's not perfect by any means. There are many other processes out there, and we are one of many processes that are trying to address the deep inequities that are out there. So where we landed right now is that in the current version of our sabbatical process, we will look at we do read and we look at every single application and we review it for eligibility. So once again, 18 plus, BIPOC, Minnesotan, as long as you meet our eligibility criteria and that you answer those questions, right? You tell us like why getting this sabbatical means something to you. Check those boxes. Great. We put it in the meet eligibility criteria, and then we'll put you in the pool for random selection. This time around, we will choose a group application to be randomized for selection, and then the remaining openings, we will choose individual applicants for that. So if you apply as the group, you can still apply as an individual applicant as well. That doesn't preclude you from applying as an individual. So you could totally do that if that's something that you're wondering at this point. But say if you were already selected in that group, then you won't be selected again as an individual. You will be part of that group going forward. So we'll make our selection, and then later we'll reach out to candidates, we'll verify you, and then say if somebody decides to not go ahead, we will select another applicant from our pool using our random selection tool. So this process happened sometime early April. So by the time you know people will be notified mid-April, so that's when folks can expect to hear back from us. if you're wondering timeline-wise where we fall with regards to this. Anything you might want to add, Susie?
I don't think so. I think you got it.
All right, perfect. Awesome. So the dates, because I mentioned them in passing, so applications are open now. Make sure that you get them in before March 24th. That's the Monday, by midnight Central Time. And, as I mentioned earlier, we will review all applications and select them by mid-April. So the fellows who are eligible and selected will be notified by mid-April. And once again, all the things that Susie mentioned earlier around reference checks and the documents and whatnots, that will happen. And of course, we will also check in with you with regards to attendance. And because this is unlike the typical sabbatical, your rest experience is attending those retreat dates, being able to attend those sessions really makes a difference. So we will definitely have a conversation with you if you are selected. All right. With that, I think it's Q&A time. So, Susie, I know that you were asking folks about the Q&A box. Um,
Yes, we do have
yeah.
some questions in the Q&A. I want to double check to see if we have any in the chat. I don't think so. So, Sukjin, I think we can just start going through the questions through the Q&A.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I
Awesome.
see you're already answering them. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm happy
Love
to
it.
also discuss those if it would be helpful.
Yes. Let me see what hasn't been answered yet. Is there any from the ones that you have answered that you want to talk out loud for folks so far?
I see there's a question about after the cohort or after the experience, what opportunities are there for people to stay connected? So I'll say a few words and then Sukjin, if you have anything else you want to say, feel free to jump in. And so right now we don't have a like set what's it called? Plan like on X date we are going to re-engage folks or on X day we're going to do that this or that. We're still dreaming up and thinking about how we want to stay connected with folks. Um, that would probably happen in 2026, and right now we're still we're still in 2025 mode. But that's something we are still thinking about and trying to be intentional about how do we hold on to relationships and how does a relationship with these fellows now transform? We do have programs that will still be around, like our Heal the Healers, which are free events for those who identify as healers. As Sukjin mentioned at the very beginning, we just ended our 3D convening. So, we're taking a breather, but we'll be back. And then the Reimagine Rest series, which I'll actually speak a little bit at the end about. Anything you'd add, Sukjin?
Yeah, absolutely. So to some of the other questions from that particular bucket too, the first cohort is actually still taking their sabbatical right now because that's the more conventional format of a sabbatical. But some of the things that they have talked about that's really key, I think, is how it's difficult to reclaim rest, right? Like first of all, to even plan for time to rest, plan to disengage, and make time for oneself. That's really difficult. And so, to a certain degree, they are actually excited for folks who are going on the rhythmic sabbatical because they're like, oh, wait a minute, this format ensures that whoever that's taking it will have those intentional chunks of time off, whereas the folks who are, going on that initial 3 month stretch. I mean, there's pros and cons, right, with both formats. It's like if you were part of the more conventional way of doing your sabbatical, you get to decide when, but then you get to do all the work. You have to do all the work yourself versus this format where, if you don't have the luxury of taking that extended time off, then you have these monthly retreats where you do that deep intentional rest at the specific time. So they are actually curious to learn from this particular group what rest feels like when you don't have to think too hard, plan too hard, that you can just show up and rest deeply and have that intentional time together as a cohort of 15 people, talk about rest, have those deep conversations that the other cohort, also had with each other. So they are excited to learn from this group. The very last gathering, the gathering in November, is one where we will bring both cohorts together for a celebration, first of all, but also an opportunity for both cohorts to exchange stories and to learn from each other. So that's where I think some really powerful learnings, like what now, right? If both cohorts get to rest in different ways, after this, like, you all are going to be on your own and keep practicing, right? Like, so what does it mean for communal care and that sense of sustainability in rest? Like, what's next for all of us? So that will be some powerful things that, I mean, we ourselves would really love to learn from the folks who will be present in the room. And also with regards to like internships and whatnot, we haven't explored that super deeply, beyond just seeing how folks are, even thinking about their own career transitions, reviving their own careers or pivoting their own careers, um, after their own sabbaticals. So it'll be interesting to see where things go with this cohort, the previous cohort and whatnot. Um, I don't want to miss a question that was here. Travel expenses are included. Yes. So yes, yes, yes to all of that. Lodging, food, meals, travel, all of that. Yes, that's included. Because the whole idea is that you're gonna feel restful. So yes, so all of that's included. If you are unable to commit to the full duration of the longest stretch in New Orleans, does that disqualify you from applying? Uh, I would say if you can't make that, um, that's really the main experience. If you couldn't commit to that, I think that misses the point of the experience. I would say if you're curious, we can talk more. So send an email to rootsupport@nexuspp.org. I would be curious to hear more about that if that pertains to your situation. Yeah. Susie, any questions you want to take before I keep talking?
Let me see. Oh, um, yeah, I'm just seeing that there are more questions. I think I can talk about the question around success stories or notable outcomes and kind of tie that in with the other question around um, feedback. So right now, our continuous cohort folks, they're all taking their sabbatical in different times, all the way through from some people started in December, but everyone is kind of at a different, decided on different timelines for their 3 months off. So we are still like because people are in the middle of their sabbaticals, we haven't heard too much about how that's gone, or how it's going for them. We do occasionally meet with folks when they reach out and want us to just think through things, and we get to hear amazing stories. But right now, we're just in the middle of it, so we haven't done like a deep evaluation on how this has impacted them quite yet. That will come. It's just not now. Excuse me. And then um, will there be opportunities? How will the success be measured? I think our approach to measuring success, I think, comes from a lot more of a qualitative approach, meaning like gathering stories, meeting with people one-on-one, hearing what was challenging and what was rewarding, what was impactful. Um, so we do have a great partner who is helping us with our evaluation. Again, because folks are in the middle of their sabbaticals, we haven't gathered those stories quite yet. But we are hoping to gather some of those insights from folks and eventually come together as a team and really think about like, wow, this is what people have said and this is what they got to experience now. What does that mean for us? And how do we want to hold um, sabbaticals or just think about rest moving forward? Um, will there be opportunities for feedback from the employee and the organization? Um, I
Not everyone is with an organization. Just to clarify with the person who asked, we made sure the way that we framed our sabbatical is that it's open enough to include folks who are organizers, who are sometimes and oftentimes, self-employed or artists or students as well. So we actually have a good mix of folks. So it's not only just folks who are, say, working with a nonprofit or with, like, say, a state agency or a corporate employer. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
To
you. Go
the
ahead.
question, how much is the stipend? We're still finalizing the numbers right now, but it's probably going to fall within the range of like 1,000 to 2,000. That is not including all the other support for travel that we mentioned earlier. So things like hotels, accommodations, like the mileage stuff, all of that will be included. The stipend is for other support. So this is like, other miscellaneous things that you might need help with. We want to make sure that because the experience itself is you all being there. So whatever that pertains with your travel being at the retreat, those are accounted for and will be taken care as part of experience itself.
Yes. Let me see, how are we at time? I'm seeing one other question. Do you all do internships? Can we briefly discuss with our careers from your experience with the first cohorts? What are some things y'all learned and how has this mission impacted the individuals? Are y'all still connected? So yeah, I think I touched on some of it, but maybe not all of it. Um, Around careers, I think these opportunities, we don't want you to approach this thinking, oh, this is my opportunity to rest, and then I will charge up my battery to continue grinding until the next time I'm burnt out, and then I'll rest again. We really hope you approach this as like like you might be really tired and burnt out. So what are ways that you can start incorporating rest? As a daily practice or a more routine in your life so that when you are met with tiredness and fatigue, you say, oh, that's okay. I'm not scared because I have the tools in my tool belt to take a minute, do whatever it is that you and your body needs. Um, to ground yourself, to rejuvenate, and continue on with whatever it is you're doing. It doesn't necessarily have to be work related. 'Cause sometimes community can be tiring too. So, so I hope that answers that a little bit. And yes, we are still connected with our cohort, our continuous cohort. They're still on working through their sabbaticals or experiencing them. So we are going to stay connected for most of this year, actually. Anything you would add, Sikjin?
No, I want to encourage people to feel like they can reach out to us anytime at root support at nexusep.org. I wonder if I will, okay, perfect.
Mhm.
Um, do email us. We will respond to your questions. I don't want you to feel like, oh my gosh, if I don't ask my questions now, then I'll never see them again. And I wish I asked my questions then. We are super friendly people if you don't feel that already. So yes, like, if you have any questions, any insights, any thoughts, reach out to us. Our inbox is open to you. And especially as you are filling out your applications, maybe a thought will come to you, maybe something that comes up. Check the FAQ. We try our best to make sure we include questions that we get from community a lot. Like it's it's amazing the number of questions that we get that are recurring. So we try and document as many of those that we know that gets asked oftentimes in that FAQ. So chances are, if you have that question, check the FAQ. If it's not answered there, reach out to us. We will get back to you. And don't hesitate to, yeah, reach out to us. Um, Yes, I know we're at time. So, Susie, you can tell us about this last flight as folks about to hop off soon?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, so the sabbatical is one of the many things that we do. This is not our only engagement with rest within our work. We also have the Reimagine Rest series. And we haven't advertised it yet, so y'all are kind of the first to hear about it, but we will have a mini kind of cohort series. First session on March 27th, the second on April 28th, where we'll bring in health practitioner Stacy Constante, who will kind of talk a little bit about our connection with menstrual cycles and overall health and spiritual well-being. She's amazing, super intelligent, uses a lot of her own, her community's ancestral practices around health and well-being. So we're excited to start advertising. Um, if you're interested, you can feel free to email us or check out our social medias and newsletters where we'll post the registration along with our website. Registration opens next week on March 10th. Our care packages is our newsletter where we send out different resources, rest resources or events or update y'all on the things that we're doing. So that's another way for you to stay connected to us. And then lastly, if you're interested in collaborating or partnering, please reach out. We love to have conversations with folks, meet one-on-one, and if it's in the cards, we would love to see how we can continue talking about rest and engage in your spaces. So don't be shy to reach out.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for spending an hour with us, especially over lunchtime. We really appreciate you taking your time with us. If you have friends, community members who wish they were here today, fret not. We still have another info session coming up next week that they can sign up for. Also, this is recorded, as you noted at the start. So we will post the recording on our website as well. So you can point them to the website. For this recording. So many ways to obviously listen to this again or participate in another info session and or as always email us and reach out for more information. So all right. Thank you everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Thank you.